Hello, dear ones. Welcome to another self-love sermon. Tonight's talk will be on cyclical self-care. We're going to be talking about the cycles and seasons of self-care in our lives. How are you all doing tonight? So good to be back with you. I'm Ellen Gilbert. I'm a self-love coach. And as always, I am going live on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time to talk all things self-love, spirituality, how the heck we possibly fit this thing called self-care into our lives. Tonight is no different. I'm just going to grab a match so we can light our candle and get started. But once you join me on the Facebook, let me know that you're here. Talking about self-care and the cycles and seasons of our lives tonight. What the heck does that mean? What is cyclical self-care? I wrote out my own little definition I'll share with you. Cyclical self-care is an acquired sensitivity to the natural rhythms of the earth and our bodies so we can anticipate, plan for, and meet our own needs. So anticipate, number one, plan for, number two, and number three, meet our own needs. So that's how I define cyclical self-care. Hi, Micah. Welcome, dear one. Who else is joining me for my self-love sermon? Y'all ready to go to the self-love church tonight? I am in the self-love pulpit as always. But this is really a church. This is a community. This is a group, a circle. I ask questions, you all answer. I share your answers. We feel the witnessing mirror of each other's gaze. And we are all healed as a result. So cyclical self-care. Hey, Claire. If you guys caught my sermon several weeks ago, several moons ago, we talked about creating rituals for the seasons. That was the time that I was down on the floor and we busted out the art supplies, and I highly recommend you go back and watch or listen to the replay if you weren't present for that one. This is sort of like that one all grown up. So we're going to really get into it tonight. Hi, Brenna. Hi, dear one. Welcome back. So good to see you. So glad you're with us again for another self-love sermon. Wanted to go ahead and light the candle to get us started tonight. Our initiatory ritual. We're going to be talking about initiation and sustaining energy and dissolving energy tonight. But anytime we set an intention, anytime we light a candle, we're bringing in that initiatory energy. So go ahead and check in with your intention for being here tonight. And as I light the flame, maybe you'll join me in lighting a candle of your very own. We are honoring and holding all of these beautiful intentions in this sacred hour together. Thank you for showing up week after week. I'm so honored and I'm grateful, and I honor myself for showing up week after week. It's not easy to go live. It's quite vulnerable. I really have to take extra care of myself on Tuesdays to ensure that I can show up in my authenticity and hold space here with all of you. So, dear ones, those who are with me live right now, the check-in question for this sermon is, what do you need tonight? What do you need? We're going to be talking about how we can get really quiet and listen to our body's needs, our mind's needs, our spirit's needs, our heart's needs. But just right off the bat, what do you need tonight? I really want us to normalize our needs and our neediness, because it can be such a topic of shame. It's like, well, we are human, we have needs. I hate to break it to you. So what do you need tonight? I'm feeling a bit tired, actually. Even though I'm in my inner summer. I'll talk about what that means. My hair's messed up. That's why I keep doing this. I'm like, I might need to grab a bobby pin because that's probably going to bother me. So maybe one of my needs is a bobby pin. Claire Bear needs sleep. Yes, dear one. You have a 6-month-old baby. You've been feeding, I know, around the clock, plus your full-time job, plus your 3-year-old precious one. Oh, yes, you do need sleep. I concur, dear one. Micah says validation, connection, rest, all good things. Yes, so articulate, well articulated. It really is the first step, isn't it, to articulate our needs, to check in, to listen, to feel them, to speak them. Very vulnerable. Thank you for sharing, dear ones. Brenna, I need to do some tidying both in my physical and mental spaces. Ooh, I love that. I love talking about mental and spiritual tidying and decluttering, Brenna. That metaphor really resonates with me. Yeah, we gotta sort through the clutter, don't we? Beautiful. Well, let's begin with a little meditation now that we've checked in, just coming to stillness. Closing the eyes if that feels okay. Finding a comfortable, supported seat. Take a deep breath in, filling the lungs completely. And through the mouth, sigh it out. Again, in. One more time, in. And when the lungs are so full, sip up a little more air and sigh it out. Pushing out all the air and allowing yourself to breathe normally. Feeling your body, the weight of the body here. These other dear ones here in space. In this moment, in this self-love sermon container, you are not alone. Take a moment to first check in with the body. Are there any areas of tension you can breathe into a little more? Release and relax into a little more. areas of pain that perhaps you didn't know you had. Just notice how simply acknowledging these bodily needs affects them. Perhaps they soften a bit. What wisdom does your body have for you right now? Holding space next for the mind. How is the mind tonight? Perhaps cluttered, foggy, hyperactive. Can you relax your mind like a muscle? Releasing the tension in the scalp and the forehead, the temples. Can you remember that your thoughts are real but not true? And that they are not you. You are not your thoughts. Noticing how that separation, that clarity affects your mind. Perhaps quieting the mind a bit. What wisdom does your mind have for you right now? Moving on now to the heart. Perhaps bringing a hand to gently rest there, making contact with your emotional self. How is your heart tonight? Precious, worthy one. Is your heart wide open? Is it shielded? Is it grieving? Is there any tension in the chest space? Can you breathe into it, imagining your heart were a lung? Noticing right away how just turning your curiosity towards the heart affects it. What wisdom does your heart have for you tonight? Turning finally to the spirit. If you're confused about what the spirit is, it's the part of you that connects to nature, to art, to the divine, to others. You can also ask yourself about your energy if that's easier. How is your energy tonight? Your vibrational self. Without any judgment. What wisdom might your spirit have for you in this moment? When you're ready, you can come out of it, breathing deeply and gently blinking the eyes, looking around to reorient. Welcome back. Wondering if anyone would like to share any particular high points of that meditation, anything that surprised you. I would love to hear. Really, it's an exercise in listening to our own needs. And tonight we're talking about cycles and seasons and how we can anticipate, plan for, and meet our own needs through developing this sensitivity to them. And I was especially excited for tonight because I am in the midst of running my group coaching program, Womanifest, for the first time ever. So if anyone here is joining or is watching the replay, we're going to be doing some of this on Thursday night. We're going to be talking about the cycles and seasons, and because I'm going to share with you some of the slides from that group program, I wanted to share with you the wait list for Womanifest. I'll just briefly say that Womanifest is an epic 4-week group coaching journey led by me. It involves weekly community circles, which include live meditation and embodiment guidance, group coaching and rituals, as well as solo work that you'll do between circles and a community chat thread that goes on simultaneously throughout the month. And you get lots of coaching deals and extras and bonuses as well. I'm planning on running it twice in 2021. Right now I'm just doing a small pilot offering. But if anyone is interested, I wanted to go ahead and open up the wait list for that. It's proven to be already, we're only 1 week in, and it's already so powerful and so amazing, and a lot of wisdom is coming through as I'm creating this program in real time. And week 2 of that program deals with cycles and seasons. And so I was putting together the agenda, and I was like, I've got to do a self-love sermon on cycles and seasons because it's something I'm really passionate about. I believe that when we can learn the cycles and rhythms of our life, of our bodies, of our needs, of our energies, of our natural world as well, that kind of mirrors what's happening internally. When we bring that understanding and that witnessing, we can have compassion. So we can have compassion for ourselves. understanding is the bridge to compassion. And we can also anticipate what we're going to need because cycles repeat. And so there are ebbs and flows, right? There are high points and low points. And cycles occur every day, every week, every month, every year. There are also longer term seasons in your life. Sometimes we have to take a step back and be like, okay, I'm in this season of my career, but it won't last forever. And that can help us to have trust that things will move on and evolve and grow and change and shift or pass away. And it can also allow us to, I think, let go a little bit. Like, okay, this isn't the end of the world. Everything comes back around again. It allows us to practice some non-attachment, right? Just going to go to the chat real quick. Micah says, the message came through for me were directly related to the needs I identified at the beginning. The body said it's okay to rest. Heart, it's okay to need other people. Spirit, you already have the connection you're longing for. You just have to be aware of it. Ooh, so good. These parts are wise, y'all. They are wise. We so often discount our intuition and we think, we can't be trusted. We think we have to outsource all of our wisdom and inspiration and meaning, and it's just not true. And what I do as a self-love coach is I try to help people tune in, unlock, translate, trust, and act on their intuition because it is powerful. And you all have one. Thank you, Micah, for sharing. Back to the cycles and seasons. So what do we know about cycles? And I've got this mandala behind me. These circles. Cyclical, right? Not linear. It's a symbol. We're going to be talking about a lot of symbols tonight. This is all symbols and metaphors. Circles are non-hierarchical. They're very feminist. They are very indigenous. They're an indigenous symbol. We're going to talk more about that. They all have phases, right? There's, a top, a right, a left, a bottom. On this circle behind me, a cycle has phases. Spring, summer, winter, fall. I said those out of order. But they all have phases and then they reconnect. They come back around again in a circle. They're the most natural thing. Nature, as I mentioned with the seasons, has its own cycles. The day, the sun rises and sets. We can look to nature and the natural world for a mirror of what's happening in our own lives as well. Like, the days are measured by the Earth's rotation. Months are measured by the moon's phases. Years are measured by the Earth cycling around the sun. And seasons are determined by the effects of our Earth's proximity to the sun. So everything that sort of informs the cycles in your life, your work day, your work week, the ebbs and flows of your own energy, your own needs for sleep, it's all determined by really astrology, astronomy, and these natural rhythms and patterns. I don't know if any of you have read Women Who Run with the Wolves. Can I get a show of hands? You can just put it in the chat if you've read it. Highly recommend it. In this book, she talks about these life, death, life cycles. I think it's specifically in the folk tale of the skeleton woman. This fisherman is fishing and he hooks a skeleton, and I think in her version he can't get rid of this skeleton, and it sort of climbs its way into the boat, and he tries to outrun it, but he can't, and it makes its way into the cabin with him. And I think he ends up falling asleep, and somehow the skeleton comes to life, and through his own heart and through his tears, which she drinks his tears, she grows flesh and she becomes alive. And the whole point behind the story is to say that for people to fall in love, for people to come together, for people to start any new life, whether it's, having a baby or starting a relationship or starting a new job or any new season, something has to die. Maybe it's just the old version of who you were, but we have to release something. And so this is the life, death, life cycles. And in the book, she talks about how women, specifically in our bodies, in our wombs, we are the portal. We are holding and carrying that energetic force, that life, death, life cycle, because we can bring life into this world through our womb. And we also, every month that we don't, or month comes from moon, every moon cycle that we don't get pregnant, we experience like a little like death in our menstruation and our bleed. We're going to talk a lot about periods tonight, so if that makes you uncomfortable, you are in the wrong place. But the life, death, life cycles, I found that really interesting, and it kind of blew my mind wide open around the menstrual cycle specifically, and just what women freaking go through. And I also love astrology. So I love how each season, it's a cycle, right? There's 12 zodiac signs, and each season kind of makes way for what the previous season lacked. So it kind of meets its own needs as it goes along the cycle. And these are all beautiful symbols, and we can use them to create rituals in our lives. And we're going to talk about the different elements. But in astrology, there are 3 qualities of signs. There's cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs. And they kind of keep going in order, just like the elements keep going in order. And of course, each element has one of each of these qualities. So the cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. They're very initiatory energy. The fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. It's a very sustaining, reliable energy. And the mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sag, Pisces, are what we're in now, Virgo season, right? Unless I missed it. I think we're still in Virgo season. Is the mutable energy, the dissolving, the release. People that are mutable are very diplomatic and careful, but they could also be perceived as like kind of like waffling around. It's kind of like, make a decision. So, and I'm going to share with you my slides here in a minute. We're going to talk about the different seasons and the different elements and the different types of self-care for each. But why is all of this revolutionary? Like, why is talking about time as cyclical and spiralic instead of linear so freaking revolutionary and earth-shattering? Like, it's revolutionary to acknowledge that we are cyclical beings. And everyone's cyclical, by the way, whether or not you have a menstrual cycle. Men have 24-hour hormonal cycles. Women have like roughly 28-day hormonal cycles. So that's a big difference, and it can really impact our energy and just the way we live our lives, and definitely our needs and the way we need to meet those needs. So because the 9-to-5 workday, the 5-day work week, the complete joke of maternity leave and paid vacations in this country were all codified by men. By this 24-hour hormonal cycle, which really set the precedent for when women entered the workforce. they kind of had to adjust their energy, adjust their entire way of being to fit this very masculine mold, this very patriarchal mold. So if you're a woman and you wonder why you don't fit the mold energetically, like if you're wondering why listening to your body seems to be at odds with keeping your job and why you feel like you always have to fake it, you are not alone. And again, can I get a hell yes and an amen? Because I felt that way for years and I didn't know what was wrong with me. This is internalized patriarchy and internalized capitalism all wrapped up, right? And by the way, it's also anti-colonialist to go into cyclical time instead of linear time, because that's a pretty indigenous piece of wisdom that we have. Anything that puts its finger on the pulse of the natural rhythms or the body rhythms, and especially the female body, right? That's pretty anti-colonizer. Our very bodies have been colonized, our very energies, our very systems, and the way we relate to the world. So it's like very freaking revolutionary to talk about time in this way and to really be courageous to step outside of the patriarchal pace and the kind of capitalist time model, which expects us to have a 24-hour hormonal cycle, expects us to show up at 9 a.m. every day with the same kind of energy that we had yesterday at 9 a.m. and that we will have tomorrow at 9 a.m. And for women, for folks that have menstrual cycles, that is just not freaking possible. Maybe you're not even aware of what the different phases of the menstrual cycle are and how that might be affecting every area of your life. But I mean, to me, this is like mind-blowing stuff. I'm going to check in real quick. Micah says, I didn't always relate to Sag traits, but I definitely relate to the mutable part. That makes so much more sense for me. Oh, yes. Mutable fire, precious one. Yes, absolutely. It's nice to find those things we relate to within our own astrology. There's definitely always things that I'm like, no, that doesn't quite fit, but it's all a journey, and we all contain many different signs, many different elements. Okay, so self-care is the response to the ebbs and flows of life. So if you're paying attention to your cycle through your needs, season to season, you can anticipate, plan for, and meet them, like I said. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've never done this in a sermon on Facebook Live, so we'll see how it goes. Bear with me. Uh-oh. It actually doesn't want me to share my screen once I start the live. Well, that's too bad. I made some really beautiful slides. I don't want to end the video. I would have to end it and then start it again. And that might be a little bit of a shit show. Oh, it says I'm already sharing. Tell me on Facebook, can you see what I'm sharing? It says that I'm already sharing it. Let me know, guys, because I have no freaking clue what's going on. Again, I've never shared my screen to Facebook Live, so I'm a bit lost. And of course, on Instagram, I'm going to share these slides as a story right after this sermon. Sorry about that. Well, I'm not sure if you can see this or not. Maybe here, if I stop it, I can go back and share it again. No, it's not letting me. Oh, sorry guys, this is sad. I definitely should have tested this, but it looked like it was going to work before. All right, well then I'll walk you through it, but I will be sharing these slides to my Facebook page and to my Instagram stories right after this sermon. I'm so sorry again, but I'm going to take you through each cycle each season of the cycle. And what do I mean by the cycle? I'm talking about the natural cycles. You can use this cycle to pretty much represent any cycle in your life. So there's a cycle of the 24-hour day with your own energy. There's the cycle of the week. There's the cycle of your month, your year. And then, of course, the natural cycles and seasons, the 4 seasons. And these are kind of, I guess, the similarities that I drew between all of them, what they all have to teach us, probably what our needs are during these times, and how we can meet those needs. So it's pretty exciting and it's a lot of information, but just stick with me. So, number one, we would start in winter. Our journey begins in winter. So, of course, the season of winter can be kind of cold and bleak, a little depressing, right? In our inner winter, for those with a menstrual cycle, it would refer to the bleeding time, the time of menstruation, the most low energy time, the time of real release, sort of that death time, the death point in the cycle. And to relate it to the moon phases, and I always say if you don't have a menstrual cycle, if you're on hormonal birth control, or you do not have a menstrual cycle for whatever reason, you can find your own internal rhythms by paying attention and tracking, and journaling is really good for this. And or you can use the moon phases. And so for winter, the moon phase would be that new moon, the time when the moon is dark in the sky, and sort of that void energy, right? So all of these things relate. And the element is water for winter. And I looked at classical astrology for these elements, and it makes a lot of sense for me, the 4 elements and the 4 seasons. So winter is related to the element of water, which is the element of our emotions. It's a very spiritual element, as we learned. Was that just last week? No, 2 weeks ago we did our Pisces full moon ritual. So this winter season, whether again it's your inner winter, your bleeding menstruation time, whether it's the new moon is in the sky or it's the season of winter, it's a time of surrender. It's sort of that death point. We have to let go of the previous cycle. It's like a big reset button, and it can be met with a lot of resistance, right? But we have to just release. We have no choice, basically. We have to give in to the winter. And it can be really hard. It can be a difficult time when you can't see the moon in the sky. There's this void energy. You know, for those of you who have a menstrual cycle, I'm sure you feel this in the bleeding time. Right? Is it just me? And it's a time to not only let go and sit with the void energy, but a time to anchor into your true self. So really get to know who you are. I mean, there's no more walls. There's like nothing to hide behind. This is you in your raw, natural form. You just have to kind of come face to face with your true self. And for journaling purposes, it's a time to set intention. So this is my moon journal. Got my moon cycles on it. And if you want to start a moon journal, I highly recommend it. I'll just really quickly walk you through my process. So I start by, I list all the phases that are coming up. Really just the full moon, quarter moon, new moon. And then the third, the last quarter as well. So those 4 stages of each moon cycle that are coming up, I just list them so I can reference it. And I only journal on those 4 times throughout the cycle. And then I came up with some phase prompts. And I'm going to be sort of sharing those throughout this presentation. So for the new moon, it's a time to set intentions. For the cycle to come, you've released the previous cycle. It's a time to set intentions for the cycle to come, over the next 28 days, or maybe it's a longer season, depending on how you're measuring this cycle, this phase. It's a time to set intentions. Like if you're starting a new job, like what do you wish for yourself? What do you want to learn? What impact do you want to have? If you're bleeding, over this next phase, what do you want to happen? How do you want to serve your community? What do you want to learn? What do you want to let go of? And so that's for the winter. And I'll just take you through some needs that we feel in our inner winter. It's the need to conserve energy, the need for warmth, and for our outer winter as well, right? The temperature dropped one day last week from 80 degrees in Albuquerque to like 40 degrees. It was ridiculous. And I was like grabbing my space heater, lighting fires, like I needed every blanket on me. I'm such a baby about the cold, but we need warmth in the winter. We also need extra nourishment. So we need, higher fat foods. And it's the same when we're bleeding. We need special nourishment. We have a profound need for spiritual meaning. Do any of you get extra witchy on your bleed week? I do. I have to do like special rituals, and I love drawing my tarot cards, and I really soak it up that week because there's just this craving for spiritual meaning. And in the seasonal winter, the Celts called the winter the dream time. And I think about that a lot because in this void, we're dreaming into our intentions for the next cycle. And if that's not spiritual meaning, I don't know what is. And then we also have this very real bodily need of pain relief. We need to relieve our pain. So some self-care we can try during the winter. Lots of baths, heating pads, anything cozy and warm. Lots of pre-planned meals. So we'll talk in the autumn at the very end about how we need to prepare for our winter. But the best self-care you can give yourself the week you're going to be bleeding, and like write it on your agenda, on your calendar, whatever you need to do to track it. The best way to care for yourself is to pre-plan your meals, maybe pre-cook and freeze your meals. I got this tip from Claire Baker, who is a period coach that I absolutely love. We also need more rituals, like I said, extra rituals this week or this season. We need more rest and dark and quiet. And like seasonally, winter is just a natural time for that. I think as a world, we've been going through a seasonal winter during this pandemic. And it's been really freaking challenging. But it's also been a time for many of us, not all of us, but for many of us, an unexpected season of rest and quiet and learning and wisdom. Another form of self-care during your winter is oil massage. It's like my favorite thing ever, especially in the winter. I like to heat the oil up. I use like olive oil or coconut oil, and I heat it like in the microwave for a few seconds, and I add really like warming essential oils like sandalwood or frankincense, and you massage your entire body. Just do it. And then it's also a great time for shadow work, for just diving into the unknown, the unconscious, whatever is uncomfortable. The winter is actually a surprisingly good time for that. It's like when you're already grieving, you can kind of go to the dark places. So that's winter. And if anyone has questions, please drop them in the chat. I'm just going to keep trugging along. I'm so sorry again that my presentation's not working, but I'm going to share it right after. And now into spring. So spring is the time of the waxing moon. So after the new moon, we see that sliver again in the sky. We come back to that quarter moon and then into the waxing gibbous. We're gearing up for the full moon. It's that waxing energy, the growing energy. It's in our menstrual cycle, the follicular phase. It's the period right after our menstruation when our hormones begin to rise again. We get some energy back, some spring in our step, pun intended, and it's ruled by the element of air, the air element, which is the mental element. And spring, the word for spring is start. Just simply begin. Whatever it is. You might be feeling vulnerable after the winter, right? When you start to see the buds on the trees, you put your sandals on for the first time. It's a similar energy in the inner spring or in any cycle. It's a little nerve-wracking, but your energy and your confidence are building again. It's a time to begin acting on those intentions you set in the winter. The energy is initiatory. So this is sort of the cardinal quality of the season. It's like, let's initiate, let's go, let's start. It's really a season of trust. It's a time to trust that summer's on the way. We're building momentum for those intentions. We're about to reach the peak. We have to keep going. And for journaling, I recommend this is a time to release any fears and anxieties, especially as they relate to your intentions. So really tapping into the inner critic, giving them voice, giving them space. They want to be held, and writing them out in your journal, either during the waxing moon time, that first quarter moon, or when you're in your inner spring, or maybe on the first day of, the spring equinox. This would be you could create a ritual using these things. And I love to create rituals for all these different phases of many different seasons in my life. And so this is hopefully empowering you to think of some for yourself. In the spring, our needs include pleasure, beauty, inspiration. It's a transitional season, so we need to hold the space for that transition. We can't rush from winter to summer. No, we have to go slow and transition. It's a time to connect and to express ourselves. So these are the needs in our spring. And some spring self-care might look like beautification. So I'm not like a super, like mani-pedi facial kind of girl, but that really is the energy of the spring, the inner spring. So if you ever want to get a treatment like that, it's recommended you do it in your inner spring. You do it during the follicular phase, just like you would maybe go get a pedicure the first day of spring before you put on those sandals again. It's a time to celebrate beauty, and beauty as self-care. And I'm the first one to say, self-care is not mani-pedis, but it absolutely can be. It absolutely can be. It's sort of reveling in that Aphrodite goddess love energy, the energy of beauty and pleasure. And it's okay to give these things to ourselves. I've been doing new skincare rituals, and I used to really resist them. And now I'm using it as a ritual, as a way to care for myself. And it's been really profound and sweet. Some other spring self-care includes art and creativity, anything to express yourself, and calling a friend. Absolutely. You're going to have more energy that week or that season to start to make some connections again. So if anyone has questions about spring, please drop them below. I'm just kind of trugging along because we've only got 10 minutes left. I can't believe it. So summer is next. Summer, everyone's favorite season, or is it just me? This is the summer that wasn't. Summer can be equated with full moon energy, that full, abundant, ripe energy, the harvest, the harvesting of your intentions, the total fullness. And it's also the time of ovulation. Thanks, Micah. I actually am in my inner summer right now, which leads to better skin, so I appreciate that. Um, but yeah, ovulation is included in the summer. So you can think of the eggs your ovaries might be producing as little full moons. It's a similar energy. It's the time where you're probably going to be at like your peak attractiveness, your peak energy. You feel almost like you could just go, 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 go sometimes, not always. But the word for summer is serve. Show up fully for your community, for yourself. It's that fixed and sustaining energy. So it's more like the fixed element in astrology. It's a time to dazzle, perform, and entertain others, right? We really want to have the spotlight on us when we're in our summer. And it's a time to celebrate and have gratitude for that harvest. And the whole season is just the season of abundance. Absolutely. So in our summers, whatever cycle we're talking about, our needs could look like the need to expend energy. That's a real need that we can have. And to do it in a meaningful way. The need for connection is really strongest in the summer. The need for wonder and magic. Absolutely. And the need to lead, serve, teach, and share. We're very serving focused in our summer. And actually, that's the only week we really need to be concerned with serving, which is wild because, especially as women, we're socialized to be selfless 24/7. But when you look at it from a cyclical standpoint in our menstrual cycle specifically, we don't need to be serving in the other seasons. They're not built for that. They're built for gearing up. They're built for resting. They're built for that void energy. How can we serve in those other seasons? So really focus and plan for your summer to be the time that you show up, teach, dazzle. Claire says it's her favorite too. Yeah, it's a great season. And summer self-care for me, maybe not for you, but for me, it looks like long hikes, dancing. Oh my God, 1000% dancing. I had a little dance party again today. It's just necessary. It's just absolutely necessary. And then gatherings. So obviously not right now. But where the spring we're sort of starting to tap on our community again, in the summer we're throwing the party. You know what I'm saying? Even for the introverts, like this is your extroverted time. You are the party, the life of the party, the host of the party, everything. And it's a great time for manifestation work and a great time to attract because you're in your abundance. It makes sense. And finally, autumn or your inner fall. It's the time of the waning moon. So the moon is beginning to slip back again from its full state back down towards the new state. It's that waning energy. It's the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle. So it's the time when our hormones are beginning to tank. So fall is an appropriate term. And it can really feel like a fall from grace. A fall, like Lucifer falling from heaven. I mean, have any of you felt shame or judged yourself during your freaking premenstrual phase? Like, I wasn't given the language or the tools to conceptualize and understand what was happening in my hormones when I had my first period. And so we're told that, oh, teenage girls are difficult and they're moody and they're needy and they're hormonal. Well, no fucking shit, we're hormonal. I mean, when you really look at what happens, our hormones are going like this and then they just freaking flatline. And just looking at this science can really help me have compassion for what I'm going through during that season. And Micah, I'm going to get to your question. That's a great one. So the element of autumn is earth. So it's that grounding energy. It's the physical element, the element that deals more with matter and the body. So the words for autumn are slow and soothe. Be gentle with yourself. Be extra gentle with yourself and ask others to be extra gentle with you. And that takes courage. You can start with your partner, with your family, with your roommates, the people that are definitely going to have to deal with you. It's like, oh, I'm in my inner autumn, you know? Or for other seasons, it can be hard going from the summer to the autumn. I mean, we try to make it exciting with all the pumpkin spice lattes, but I wonder if that's just to cover up like a little bit of resistance. So be gentle. We're coming down off a great high. It's a time of reflection. It's a dissolving energy. It's the mutable quality. It's the time to really dissolve what happened, this cycle, so we can begin to prepare for the winter again. It's a time to release negativity. So if you're journaling again, releasing negativity, bad habits, and what I call your shoulda, coulda, wouldas. So you get to the end of this cycle and you're like, shoot, I meant to manifest, this epic thing when I had that peak energy. This happens to me every cycle. And I definitely have FOMO and energy shaming issues as an Aries, something I struggle with. So even at the end of the work day, which you could consider the autumn phase, it's like, okay, I'm going to move. Sometimes the greatest act of self-care is moving those to-dos that didn't get done at the end of the work day to tomorrow's to-do list. What an act of grace and a release, and saying, you know what? I trust that this will get done in its due time. That's what the autumn is all about. It's really, even though it can be the biggest time of suffering for many of us emotionally, when you talk about menstruation especially, it can be the biggest opportunity then for self-care and self-compassion. Those two go hand in hand. So some autumn needs that we all have, it's the need for an emotional release. It's the need, we feel lonely. So again, we need community in a different way. It's coming more from a loneliness rather than a I just want to party kind of mentality. Again, we have a need for more meaning making during this season because it's another yin season, just like the winter. It's a more restful, quiet season. So it's time for more meaning making. And we might be in more physical pain. Some people experience worse physical pain in their premenstrual phase than their actual bleed. And it's again a transitional season, so a time to really be conscious of slowing down, holding space. You can't rush from your summer to your winter. You've got to have that autumn. And we're entering autumn here in the Northern Hemisphere. So these are needs that you might be feeling on some level as we begin, and especially with this sort of lost summer many of us experienced due to the pandemic. There can be a lot of grief going into autumn. So hold space for that. And some self-care you can practice. I love yin yoga, the yoga with all the props, the really restful, supported yoga in this season. Body work. This is the time, just like the spring is the time to get like the beautification, the autumn is the time to get the body work, like Reiki, massage, acupuncture. And I just have to say, sorry, Instagram, my Instagram live is about to end, but you can catch the replay here in a little bit on my Facebook or switch over to my Facebook. Sorry. And so autumn self-care also includes preparing for the winter. So cooking those meals, freezing those meals, cleaning your space in the autumn. And you can kind of get that nesting energy if any of you have given birth. I've read that this is something that can happen then too, where it's like, I've got to feather my nest and prepare the space. And we should really get into that energy in our autumn so that we can take care of our home and our future self by organizing and cleaning and preparing and getting what needs doing done. It's a great planning time. You can also use the seasons in your business. So this would be a planning time. And it's a time to ask for help. That's my favorite that I put on this autumn self-care list. The perfect time to ask for help. You're going to start needing your community more in this autumn phase. So those are the 4 seasons. And that can, again, relate to your work day. You know, maybe the winter is the sleeping time, and the spring is that early morning, the summer is midday, and then the autumn is the last part of your day. You know, it can relate to your week. Sunday and Saturday might be sort of that winter, but then, you know, you go through the cycle again and you set your intentions, you see what you get done, and then you release again. Even the weekend could have a cycle. Of course, there's the annual cycle. I mean, what other cycles? There's so many. Micah asked, how, as a helping professional, do you balance only having the serving energy one part of the cycle? Because I definitely feel that shift. Oh, yes, great question, Micah. I mean, it's impossible to balance completely or perfectly, right? But compassion is key. Like I've said, the understanding breeds compassion. So I track my cycle every night. I have a red journal by my bed, and I write down what day of my cycle I'm on, how I'm feeling that day, and then I can flip back through previous cycles and say, oh, I felt like that this time last cycle, you know. So if today's like day 14, then I can look back to day 14 last cycle and see, oh, I was feeling that way then too. Like, it's okay, this is normal. And in terms of planning for how I show up for my clients, you know, there are certain things I can't take off my plate, like weekly one-on-one client meetings or a group program I might have planned for like the wrong week, or maybe not the best week for my cycle. But I definitely try to plan anything where I'm teaching, presenting, speaking engagements, workshops. And as a business owner, I'm so grateful I have control over these things. For my summer weeks and maybe my spring as well, I try to plan the planning for the fall. And then the winter, my God, I try to do almost nothing. It's like a little magic trick I do every cycle where I'm like, how much can I make disappear off my plate, off my to-do list? That is the ultimate self-care. And I know that's not accessible to everyone. So I think it's really about, if you are in a menstrual cycle situation, it's really about knowing what's coming up and how to prepare for it. So maybe in your inner autumn, you're really saying, okay, I have this big thing in the winter and I'm not going to feel like it. How can I extra care for myself? What more can I make disappear off my plate? I mean, is there anything that, like, what is the bare minimum that I have to do in my inner winter? And that helps a lot of our issues. It helps heal our inner perfectionist, our inner good girl, our internalized capitalism. It helps us on so many levels to practice cyclical self-care. I hope that began to answer your question, Micah. I'm wondering what you could remove off your plate in the other seasons. I'm wondering how more you could care for yourself and hold the space for yourself. And maybe that just means having understanding, like, oh, this is going to be a hard week, you know, but I'm here. I'm here for myself. I'm doing the best I can. And if I have a little less energy to give, a little less to show up with, maybe I can even, for people I'm working with that I trust and that I feel safe with, I can even share with them, like, hey, I'm bleeding. I'm a cyclical being. I used to tell my coworkers that. And now that I'm a coach, I definitely tell my clients that. I tell you all that. And it's really freeing. And I think it's part of destigmatizing the menstrual cycle overall, is if we could all show up in our truth and be like, hey, this is where I'm at. What day are you on? Or like teach the men in our lives, like, just so I'm going to be bleeding and my energy is going to freaking tank and I don't know that I can take that on. How radical would that be? I think a lot of this is reimagining and revisioning and just holding that space for ourselves. And I'd love to hear your all's thoughts. I'd love to continue this conversation. It's one of my favorite topics. I'm going to share the slides on my Facebook page, on the Instagram stories, and I really would encourage you to keep this conversation going there. And sign up. Don't forget, sign up for the waitlist for Womanifest. I'll share the link again. You can also donate if you want to support my work at luminousleanings.com. And thanks for joining another self-love sermon. Go meet your needs. Stay in tune with your needs. Keep your finger on the pulse, on the rhythm of your unique cycle. And let that understanding breed compassion. Let that knowledge breed self-care. And journal. Journal, journal, journal. Write it all down so you can go back and have even more understanding and compassion on your beautiful journey. I love you all so much. I'm so grateful. And I'll see you next week. Bye, dear ones.